Hi, my name is Jessica Rosenstrow, and I am in EDL 850 into school law this fall. So I just wanted to introduce myself, a little bit about me. I have been an Army wife for almost 22 years now. We have 4 children, 2 girls, 2 boys. Our oldest is at Purdue University. This is her 4th year. And then we have another daughter who's a freshman this year, and then a 6th grader and a 3rd grader. And the 3 of them are learning virtually right now with mom. So it's quite a little different this fall than what most of us are used to. I have a bachelor's from Purdue University in elementary education. I decided when our kids were younger, I took 9 years off between my husband, the deployments, and constantly out in the field, and then just having really young kids. I decided to take time off. So I took about 9 years off. And when I went back to work, I decided I wanted to get my master's as a reading specialist. And so I pursued that. When we got back to Colorado, when we were stationed back in Colorado again, my old boss reached out to me, and she hired me as an instructional coach. And so that was kind of the push, the incentive that I needed to go back to education or into pursue my admin license. So I was an instructional coach until she retired, and then I went and taught 5th grade, and then last year I taught 6th grade reading at a school that was closer to home. This summer we moved down to Georgia, and we're going to be down here for about 3 years, and then we'll see what happens next. But we hope to retire in Colorado. So when I looked at this assignment, when I looked at the state level, instead of looking at Kansas or even Georgia, I looked at Colorado, because that's ultimately where we're going to retire, and it's coming up sooner than later. And so so that's kind of my focus is on Colorado. So anything that's state related or different things, that's kind of where I'm looking at. I went ahead this year and took time off from teaching, simply because between COVID, the move, trying to get my kids settled here, and I really want to finish this license, I decided I wanted to take a year off and just kind of focus on me and my family. And which is probably a smart thing, because since all 3 are home learning, and we did that this spring, and I had 148 kids on top of all 4 were home with me. So this year's kind of all about me and finishing this license, and then I'll see what Georgia has to offer for the next couple of years while we're here, or I may just wait until we move back to Colorado to pursue looking at either being an instructional coach, or eventually I'd like to be an assistant principal. So that is me in a nutshell. So let's talk about the 3 levels of government and how they support the public schools. I know on our sheet that it said local, state, federal. I kind of flipped it and did federal, state, local. So the first one that I want to look at is, when we're looking at this, is looking at the federal support. So their mission is to promote student achievement and preparation for global competitiveness by fostering educational excellence and ensuring equal access. So what does that mean? I was really glad that we had these articles, because it's overwhelming, and I feel like you could probably spend most of this class learning all of these different laws. So I was glad we had some guidance with the articles that we had. So what does the federal do? So they protect civil rights of all students. They provide the laws, guidance, and regulations for every Student Succeeds Act through the EEOC enforcing these laws, the equal opportunities. They provide funding for educational opportunities for high-need students, whether that be low-income families or individuals with disabilities. They measure the effectiveness of their own programs, and they offer guidance and support to the local education systems. Moving on to our state, the state, their mission for Colorado, their mission statement, which I found on the CDE website, is to ensure equity and opportunity for every student every step of the way. So they're primarily accountability and oversight. They establish their own Department of Education and pass laws governing schools in their state. 44 states and DC implement the Common Core state standards. Colorado has their own state standards that they use. Setting goals, strategic planning outlined, evaluating, and reporting yearly to those set goals is how the state supports our public schools. Then the local support. So the mission, and I got this from the last school district I worked at, which is in Monument, Colorado. And so I pulled in their mission statement: doing what's best for kids, treating individuals with dignity and respect, encouraging purposeful creativity and innovation, preserving and promoting excellence. So that's on their website. So basically, local, you're running the schools. School districts who elect or appoint the school board members, 96% are elected. And they hire the superintendent, who's basically your CEO of the school district. School board jobs, again, I found this on the Lewis Palmer website, but basically, and I would assume most school boards are this way, but they adopt policies, they plan school services, and evaluation the quality and effectiveness of the district services. Other articles that I read said the local support is to establish the curriculum, hire personnel, decide when schools will close, consolidate, or be constructed. So now, when we look at this, who is in charge of this? And let me pull that up a little bit. There we go. Okay, so the federal, they're all paid, starting from President Trump to the Secretary of Education, Congress, Department of Education. They all get paychecks. They are basically, and I didn't break it down to say what each person did. I just kept it as a overall. They're basically working to improve results of our education system for all students and create programs that cover every area of education and allow all students access from pre-K to post-secondary. And they became a key part. Basically, this began in 1965 with the ESEA. It's a key part of President Johnson's war on poverty, and that's when the our federal government kind of stepped in with the education system. Then when you move to the state, again, I looked at Colorado, but you have a commissioner of education, you have a state board of education, you have the Department of Education. So they provide the leadership for the state. They approve the budgets, they create and implement laws and rules, policies that govern the state's education. They accredit your school districts, distribute state and federal funds, and they regulate your educator licensing. And I found this on the Colorado Department of Education's website. Then local, you've got your school board, who are volunteers. Again, they either are elected or nominated, but in ours, they're elected. You have a superintendent who is paid, and of course your principals are paid. Their duties go from establishing the curriculum, hiring the personnel, determining schools, closings, consolidating, and opening. But they also run the day-to-day routines within your schools. They're assessing the teaching methods. They're assessing the curriculum constantly. They're analyzing the student data that we're constantly getting. They're administering the budget. So those are some of the things that the local handle. So it starts, from the federal and kind of comes down, where the local is where you're really, that's really who's in charge of the public schools. So the most influence over, so looking at these three components, who has the most influence over them? So 6.1 talked about evaluating, developing, and implementing management, communication, technology, school level governance, and operation systems to develop and improve data-informed, equitable school resource plans and to apply laws, policies, and regulations. So when I looked at that, really, to me, it's your local government. Now, you could probably pull in some state on that as well, but overall, I think your local government is where who has the most influence over this, because they're the ones who are establishing our curriculum. They're hiring, they're monitoring who is hired. They manage the day-to-day of schools. They're analyzing student data, communicating with the community as well as the parents, distributing the budget, applying the laws set in place by your federal and state governments. So to me, 6.1, who has the most influence, would be your local government. The next is 6.2, which is evaluate, develop, and advocate for a data-informed and equitable resourcing plan that supports school employment and student development. So when I looked at that, I was thinking it was more our state government, because they're constantly evaluating the school district's data, and they're developing plans for those struggling districts and schools, and they're also your advocates for school districts. So I figured 6.2 was your state government, who has the most influence. Then 6.3, reflectively evaluate, communicate about, and implement laws, rights, policies, and regulations to promote student and adult success and well-being. So this, I thought, was definitely your federal government, because they're the ones that create the budget. They develop the programs, acts, laws to help student and adult success across the country. They enforce the laws that are in place to ensure all students have an equal opportunity for success. They are definitely they have the least involvement in decisions within schools and districts. They provide the support and services for us. So how does this support the educational success and well-being of each student and adult? So I thought about the African proverb, it takes a village to raise a child. That was kind of my thinking when you look at all three, from the federal, the state, and the local. They all basically, you need all of them in order to help our students be successful. And so the three of them working together ensures that all students and adults are given equal education opportunities, regardless of their socioeconomic background or disabilities. There's continuous accountability across all three to strive for the best education possible by analyzing data and evaluating effectiveness of programs and policies in place. So that is why I think that all three are very important. And then the last two slides I have are just our references. So the ones that we were given, as well as the CDE, Colorado Department of Education, and then Lewis Palmer websites. I'm looking forward to this class, and I hope you enjoyed my slides. Thank you.